All right, everyone, live back in action, attacking your speakers from the field to the bleachers. This is the Power 32 podcast alongside my main man, Mr. Primetime 313, David Dale, and I am the sports prophet. Ready for another hour of power. For all the goodies over here, we have NFL draft recap all show long. We're going to have a whole lot of fun with that, talk about the teams, the futures, the picks, what we think of them, maybe give out grades, have a little fun with that. Hey, listen. You like the Power 32 podcast, you like what you hear, you like what you see, you like what's going on, tell your friends about it. If you don't have friends, go out and make some, listen to the Power 32 podcast together, or bond over a beer, whatever it is, get some mozzarella sticks, whatever you want, whatever makes you happy.
Mozzarella sticks are awesome, by the way.
Yeah, they are, right? Who doesn't like mozzarella sticks? Come on. Unless it's from a fast food restaurant, then no, I'll pass. Got to be good Italian style, man. So, yeah, if again, you like this, you like what you hear and see today, like, subscribe, do all that good shit. What's going on, Dave? My main man, Mr. Primetime in the house. What's happening, brother?
Not much, man. Not much. Just hanging out here in Detroit. I think the weather is finally turned for good, but every time I say that, we get another 32-degree day or something. So, but what's the weather like down there, man?
Don't get greedy, man. Yeah, we're starting to get to that hotness right now. Not the humidity yet, but the heat is picking up. We're at the end of April. It's beginning of May is coming around. So, yeah, it's time for Florida to start, living up to its name as being the Sunshine State and sunshine and 100 degrees of hell down on us.
Oh, man. God. You can keep that. You need to move back up, up east.
No. That's where you got it wrong. That's the reversal. You need to move down here. Get away from those 6-month-long winters, man. You see, you're still going through it. It's the end of April. It's supposed to be springtime. And you don't know if it's going to be 30 degrees tomorrow or 60 degrees tomorrow.
Yeah, that sounds about right, too. That's how it is up here.
Oh, man. Well, we got some players who are going to be playing in some 30-degree weather and below 30-degree weather, and others in Tampa and Miami and Jacksonville over here in Florida, where it's usually nice but raining at a lot of times. So we have draft recap to talk about today. Some of you guys have heard this stuff, but we're going to give our own take on it. We're going to go through basically every single team, and not go through every single draft pick, obviously, but give our opinions onto what they did and how the team is looking as comparable to things they did in the offseason. So, Prime, we got some work to do today. I'm ready to get into it. If you are, my friend.
Absolutely, man. Let's do it.
All right. But we got to do something first, right? We got NFL trivia, man. You know it.
Got to handle that business.
Here it is, baby. This week's NFL Trivia Prime has, I think, got 4 out of the last 5 or something like that.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Here we go. Who was the last quarterback to win the Super Bowl that was the first overall draft pick?
Ooh. So
the last quarterback that was the first overall draft pick to win a Super Bowl, who was the last one to do it?
Let's see here.
Right.
It's kind of.
I need that Jeopardy music on here. I got to find that somehow.
Right. Oh man, and this, and the obvious is if it's obvious that I should know this particular one, but I don't know if it was him.
Maybe it is.
I'm trying to run back the last first.
Dude, you're always overthinking yourself.
I know.
You're always just second guessing, overthinking. You always have the right answer there.
I'm gonna go. Is it Eli?
Damn, so close. Eli was 2 quarterbacks ago, but your other boy, Matt Stafford, first overall pick.
Oh yeah, damn. Yep, out of Georgia. Yep. Damn. How can I miss that?
Yep. But Eli was the first overall pick, not by the Giants, but by the then San Diego Chargers it was, and then later made a pick because Archie Manning was not letting his child play with the Chargers. He's, nope, you're going to the Giants. That's it. End of freaking story right there. So, yeah.
Damn, that one's going to kick. I'm going to kick myself for that one. Let's see. I answered too, so.
I think the last number 1 overall pick to win a Super Bowl was Eric Fisher, offensive lineman for the Kansas City Chiefs. The last number 1 overall pick in total, I think it was, as far as draft picks are concerned, being number 1 overall. But there's a lot of number 1 overall picks that actually had won Super Bowls, believe it or not. I don't want to go back too far, but Troy Aikman, Keyshawn Johnson, Peyton Manning, of course, Eli, as you mentioned before, and yeah, Eric Fisher was drafted in 2013 to the Chiefs and won a Super Bowl with them, a few years later. John Elway is another one. So yeah, so quite a few guys over there. Usually quarterbacks, right?
Usually, yeah.
Yeah, that's how it goes. All right, well, let's see how this goes, man. We're going to go through the draft right now. Picks 1 through 32, but even more than that, because there were teams like the 49ers, the Bengals, the Bills that didn't have a first-round pick. And the 49ers, dude, made me wait. I was fucking pissed off. They had the 27th pick. I'm waiting up as well. The draft went along pretty smoothly. I mean, it was a good pace, but still, at the same time, I'm like, all right, the Niners got the 27th pick. I'm sitting there waiting. They trade back. I'm like, okay, they trade back a few picks. They probably got their eyes on a guy, and, they feel they can grab him. Nope, trade back again, out of the first round, into the second round with the first pick, and they get Deshaun Stribling, which I didn't even know was. You'll have to talk to me about that later. We'll get into it, man. So, oh gosh, let's start dancing, man. Let's get over it. Let's do this thing, man. Let's start talking NFL draft. The Raiders had the first pick. Obviously, we knew they were taking Fernando Mendoza, but they picked up Traden Stukes, who's a highly talked about defensive back out of Arizona, and they got Jermod McCoy, who arguably was maybe even the best cornerback in this draft, but didn't play last year due to injury. Mm-hmm. So watch out for him. Hezekiah Massa. So they addressed a few positions: cornerback, D-back, wide receiver, D-tackle, but they got the quarterback number 1 overall. So no surprise they are prime with what they did.
Oh, no, and there's a lot of people that grade out the Raiders, and, we talked about this before, how much we hate grading out drafts sometimes, but it's all part of the business. But
yeah, you really need to wait like a few years, before you.
But I think the key with the Raiders is that, like you mentioned, they kind of address so many different positions. They went. I mean, they basically got a little bit one of everything. But
they had a good offseason too, so I take that into account. Getting Tyler Linderbaum, Dean, Quay Walker.
If you're a Raiders fan, I mean, there's, we talked about it last week, at the beginning, before the draft, talking about hope springs eternal. And if you're the Raiders, you take this draft. I mean, of course, all these guys probably won't be stars, but you pair that with what you did in free agency and trades and whatnot. And then, of course, all of this is contingent on how Mendoza performs. But I think one of the, you talk about some head scratchers and headliners. I think one of the head scratchers belongs to the Raiders in the fact that Jermod McCoy went in the 4th round. And a lot of people had him graded their 3rd round. A lot of people had him graded as a,
I think you're right.
First round. It was 4th round.
4th round, right? Actually, he went day 3. Yeah, you're right.
He was crazy. He was like, and he was graded as a first round guy. He was a first round guy in most people's mocks and everything. And I think you and I had him both.
Scared the hell out of people.
But, it's one of those things that happens, and who knows, excuse me, he may turn into a stud. And, the Raiders may have found their diamond in the rough in this draft. I think overall the Raiders had a really good draft. Pair that, like I say, with the offseason that they had. See if Fernando Mendoza is everything that everybody says he is. And the Raiders could, it's still tough to say. There's a possibility that they'll win that division because it's so tough. But at least they may be a little bit more competitive than they were last year.
Yeah, and again, a lot of that is contingent upon their first overall pick with Fernando Mendoza. If he turns out to be the real deal, then watch out. The Raiders definitely have a bright future because the quarterback is key, no question about it. So we shall see what happens with that. The second overall pick, the Jets ended up with 3 picks in the first round, actually. So, I mean, it's funny. People are loving the Jets draft, and yes, they did a good job, but it's almost like you had to do a good job because you need everything. So you had to pick everything. So they take the edge rusher, David Bailey, with their second pick, 16th. They get the tight end, only one again in the first round. I believe that went Kenyon Sadiq, and then they come back and trade back into the first round and get, with my Niners, of course, screw us, and take Omar Cooper Jr., who's a guy I wouldn't mind having from Indiana, who Fernando Mendoza threw the ball to. So they get a corner. They get a quarterback also in Cade Klubnik from Clemson, who you know more about, who was kind of highly touted coming out, even last year. They thought that he was going to have a better season, but they had a down season in Clemson as far as their offense is concerned. Defensively, they had a lot of players drafted, but the Jets overall, yes, they addressed a lot of needs. But Geno Smith is the quarterback, so how far is he going to take them?
Yeah, and that's always a big question mark. But I think I think overall the Jets, it's what do you get the person who has everything, and it's like what do you get the person who has nothing? In this case, it's the New
Yeah.
York Jets. So
Right.
I go back to headliners and head scratchers, and I think one of the headliners I think was a steal for the Jets. A lot of people may think it was a reach, but when you get Kenyon Sadiq out of the Pacific Northwest, that school up there in Oregon, this guy here, man,
Yep.
he's a field stretcher. And for those of you who don't really pay a lot of attention to college football, you really missed out watching this guy play. 4'4", 40, 43-inch vertical. He's got all the athletic tools. So if anything, Geno Smith will have that weapon in the middle to kind of open it up for Omar Cooper, and getting one of his out of Indiana Ponds, who some people had as a first round grade in some mocks. He's really good too, and he's a ball hawk, and I think he's going to make a really, really big difference. The only thing I don't like about D'Angelo Ponds is that he's only 5'8", but he's as physically and mentally tough as you'll see, playing that position. So, he is going up against some bigger receivers once he gets to the NFL, but I think just his intangibles, he'll be a great special teams player. He returned kicks a little bit for Indiana. So overall, I think I like what the Jets did in this draft, but again, you say they couldn't miss because hell, he needed everything. So you grab one of everything, and it's like, all right, we got a pretty good draft. And they still do have some cap money left to spend, so we'll see as the offseason progresses. But I kind of like what the Jets did. Not going to put them as world beaters, but
I'm interested to see what comes up with the quarterback, Cade Klubnik, if he gets in there at some point. Maybe they want to see before next year's draft, if they are going to draft a quarterback, the Jets going to say, you know what, let's get Klubnik in there for like at the last 6, 7, 8 games and see if this kid has got something for us.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't have to draft a quarterback next year, and maybe they get ahead of the game. You never know. Guys come out of third, fourth, fifth, sixth rounds and turn out to be studs all the freaking time. So, look, let's see what happens with that. Arizona, they went third. I despise what they did, but I love it as a 49ers fan. I just don't really understand. Again, Jeremiah Love, you want to put butts in the seats, fine, but you got already James Conner and Algier. I don't understand. And then they go offensive line, which is smart. They went Chase Basantes. But I thought that there were other guys maybe they can go with. The quarterback they went with, not Ty Simpson, but Carson Beck out of Miami, who has been a pretty decently proven quarterback in college, but maybe doesn't necessarily translate to the NFL. To me, Prime, as great of a player as Jeremiah Love is, and maybe even could be in the NFL, this could be an Ashton Jeanty story all over again.
Well, and he was one of my head scratchers. I was kind of wondering why Arizona chose to pick him. I mean, he's probably the best player overall in the draft, but at the same time, you have so many other things that you needed. There was a possibility of trading that pick, trading down and getting maybe another pick or two. You chose not to. So now you have two really good running backs. You still have question marks at quarterback. Carson Beck, the thing I like about Carson Beck, and I've watched him for like 17 years, that guy seems to have played that long. He's big, he's strong, and I think, one of the best things about him is the way that he kind of sees the field. He's made some really, really good throws. And again, I know there might not be a lot of college football fans that watch this show or listen to this show, but at the same time, this is a guy that I think a lot of people were down on him. And when he was at Georgia, they kind of ran him out of there a little bit. He went to Miami and they almost won the national championship, and it was because of him and those two monsters that they had on defense. But going to future, you talk about the same thing, about the Jets and the future of their quarterback. Carson Beck, I think, is going to be probably, a Baker Mayfield type, when it comes to his story. But I kind of question and scratch my head as to which direction Arizona was going, especially when they probably could have parlayed that third pick into a couple more.
Yeah, to me, they're just trying to put butts in the seats and not trying to win ball games right now. That's, otherwise you go in a different direction. You go offensive line, defensive line. I don't know. But, hey, look, this kid may be starting sooner than later, depending on what happens with Jacoby Brissett, who apparently is not a happy camper right now. And neither was the owner of the 4th overall pick, the head coach Robert Saleh of the Tennessee Titans, when they took Cornell Tate, with the 4th overall pick. He was not a happy man. I mean, he did not look like he was enjoying himself in the freaking draft room over there. So they take Tate with their first pick, the 4th overall. They come back later and trade back in and get Keldrick Falk, who is still available. I'm kind of surprised, the edge rusher out of Auburn later in the first round. And they get linebacker Anthony Hill Jr., who dropped a lot as well. Yeah, it looks like a real big steal. So they did pretty good. They got an offensive lineman. They grabbed another running back, defensive tackle. So the Titans, I think, had a good draft. I don't love the fact that they went wide receiver first. I think that maybe the fact that Arvell Reese was still there at that point, maybe that's the guy you go with. But they get some help for Cam Ward, try to get a little bit of offense going, and trust that Robert Saleh is going to get the most out of the defense. But overall, I think Tennessee had a pretty good draft.
Yeah, and again, this is one of my heads that Tennessee chose to go the wide receiver route at number 4. But they did redeem themselves by getting, Keldrick Falk and Anthony Hill Jr., 2 of the premier defensive players in all of the nation. They also, and then they got Jeremiah Love's running mate, Nicholas Singleton, who, if memory serves me, this guy had like over 1,000 career receiving yards. So, there's an additional weapon there that may prove to be a more productive 5th round pick. And, then they, kind of went tight end, defensive line. They drafted a center. But the whole Carnell Tate, and Saleh was not happy. It was one of those things, it was kind of hard to hide his disdain for that pick. But at the end of the day, he still got his way. He still got 2 really good defensive players at the end of the day. And so, we've seen him make magic with less, with that 49ers teams over the years, piecemealing those guys, all the injuries and stuff you guys have had. So I'm pretty okay with the draft outside of with Tennessee's draft, outside of the fact that they picked Carnell Tate at number 4.
Yeah, I agree with you pretty much on all accounts right there. But maybe Carnell Tate will shut us up and turn out to be an amazing wide receiver. Ohio State has definitely produced quite a few pretty damn good wide receivers going back a long time now, even the Joey Galloway days. My goodness. All right.
Wow.
Dating myself over here, Prime. Check me out, baby. Check me out. All right. Check you out in your New York freaking Giants, man, who definitely had a good draft, in my opinion. Arvell Reese fell to them in the first round with the 5th overall pick. They also had the 10th overall pick, and they get CC Mawinoa. Again, still trying to figure out where the N is in his last name and why it's pronounced that way, but okay. It's not Mawinoa, it's Mawinoa. But 2 excellent first-round picks, in my opinion, and that's exactly what John Harbaugh does, man. Yeah. Go get Arvell Reese, linebacker / DN, to go with Abdul Carter and Kayvon Thibodeau and Burns. I mean, really, they could do a lot of great stuff on defense, man. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they got to do. And as far as Mawinoa goes, maybe he'll start at guard this season and eventually move over to left tackle. But the Giants' offensive line has got their pieces together for the first time in a while, and you think they're looking pretty good.
Yeah, and I think, and going back to that N thing, it's like when they, Tua Tagovailoa, it's like, where's the N in his name? But I was very pleased with the first 4 picks of the Giants draft, and I think drafting Mawinoa, you still got Ellen Manor, and you still have Andrew Thomas, and you got your offensive line right now is pretty set. But I think this guy comes in and he's an instant starter, either at tackle or at guard. Colton Hood, I think, is going to end up.
I think that was a nice steal, man. Yeah.
And it kind of threw a lot of people. I think a lot of people were going to go, thought that they would end up picking up McCoy, but I think this is his running buddy. He's a little bit more physical than McCoy is, and I think he's a bit more better of a man-to-man defender. And Tennessee played a lot of zone, and that's kind of where McCoy, that was his strength. But when you look at Colton Hood and his physical presence, he's 5'11". He's probably closer to 6 feet tall if you ask him. But I think the Giants did exactly what they needed to do. They hit a home run with their first 2 picks. Arvell Reese is going to be a monster. Like you said, I can't wait to see how they deploy him. This is almost, and I'm not going to put it out there yet, but this is almost like a Micah Parsons type thing. It's like, where's Waldo? Where are you going to line this guy up? Who's pick your poison. with 4 or 5 of the defensive players that the Giants have right now. And if McCoy ends up Hood ends up being a stud to solidify that secondary, and Jackson Dart is able to do his thing, I still would have liked to see them take a running back, but I think they're sold on Cam Scatterbo for now and Tyrone Tracy. So we'll see if that combo can lead the Giants at least to 8-9 wins and start being competitive again in the NFC East.
Yeah, man, and it looks like hopefully they can. They got the right head coach. What is that noise? You hear that?
No.
You hear that noise?
Uh-oh, you guys got more aliens and UFOs down there? What's going on, man?
What's going on over here, man? I'm telling you, things are happening. Things are absolutely happening right now. I don't know. It's all over the freaking place. I don't know where that music came from. That was freaking crazy, man. That just came out of my computer out of nowhere, dude. That was one of the nuttiest things I've ever seen in my life. But all right, yeah, you New York Giants, job well done, especially in the first round, addressing needs and doing the John Harbaugh type of thing over there. Who knows if they would have taken Jeremiah Love? We'll never find out. We're never going to know. But the Kansas City Chiefs were at 9. They move up to 6 because they were afraid that somebody else is going to jump up and take Mansour Delane. We knew that that's who Kansas City was taking, Prime, but they move up a few spots, take him. They wanted him that bad. They also, with their second pick, 29 overall, get a nice draft pick in Peter Woods from Clemson. I really like that. R. Mason Thomas is another one that people are saying is a steal in the second round with the 40th overall pick. Later on, they get Garrett Nussmeier to be a backup. I mean, yes, every team needs a backup. We'll see what happens with him. But Kansas City did a pretty damn good job also, man. I really like their pick. They concentrated on defense, and they're relying on Patrick Mahomes to be Patrick Mahomes, and that running game to be more of a contributing factor for the team with Kenneth Walker in the house now.
Yeah, and plus they drafted an Oregon Duck, so you can't go wrong there.
Of course, quack, quack, baby.
That's it, quack, quack, when they drafted Jadon Canada.
Yep.
The Garrett Nussmeier pick is intriguing because this was a guy that was, before the beginning of the season last year, was projected to be like a first-round pick. LSU did not have the season that everybody anticipated, kind of like a Carson Beck, a Cade Klubnik type situation where they go into the season with all the hype. These guys are number 1, number 5, top 10 picks, whatever. And then their team ends up sucking, and then it ends up hurting their draft status. And he was very erratic this year, not going to lie. He didn't have the year. Even though LSU wasn't that great, he still didn't put himself in a position to kind of increase his draft stock. I am surprised that he went in the 7th round, but that's, he wasn't going to play anyway. Even if he was a first, second, third round pick, he's not going to play because they got that curly haired guy there that kind of runs around and wins Super Bowls out there in Kansas City. By the way, R. Mason Thomas, that is not an initial. That is that's part of his actual first name.
How about that, huh?
Just a little bit of trivia there. But I love the Peter Woods pick.
Yep.
I like the Emmett Johnson pick. He'll be a solid contributor to them. He's not going to be a superstar, but he's just another guy that can give you some depth in the backfield as Kansas City tries to rebuild themselves and get back to the promised land properly.
Yeah, man. And look, when you got Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, you have a chance. There's no doubt. Last year was definitely a what the fuck is going on type of season. They didn't win the games that they thought they were supposed to, but hey, sometimes it's how it goes, man. So Kansas City with the rare top draft pick with Delane, and then taking Peter Woods later on in the second pick in the first round. So
and I'm glad real quick you said that because
Yeah.
it's Delane for those people out there. It's not Delane.
Right, not Delane.
Delane.
Right, Delane, that's it. Delane. Strong A, if you know your English, Delane, not Delaney at the end. Yeah. Go back to grammar, English 101, take your classes, man.
Right.
Oh, boy. So Washington, I think they ended up lucky with Sonny Styles with their first overall pick.
Man.
I think this guy is going to be the defensive rookie of the year.
Wow.
I really do. I love this kid. I had him going higher. I thought that maybe he was going to get drafted earlier by one of these teams, but linebackers usually don't go pure linebackers as he is. But he can play middle. He can play outside linebacker. He can move around the field. He's a former safety. So definitely a good draft pick there. But overall, not loving Washington's draft pick. Yes, they went wide receiver. Now, they didn't have another pick until the 3rd round. So they get the kid out of Clemson, Antonio Williams. Joshua Joseph's the edge rusher out of Tennessee. They draft the running back and center position, so they didn't have a whole lot of picks, Washington, so there wasn't really a whole lot they could do. But I do love the Sonny Styles pick. I think that's solid, and I think that he could be a cornerstone of that defense for a long freaking time.
Yeah, and I think one of the steals of the draft, and I mentioned this before, is going to be Kaytron Allen, their 6th round pick. I'm surprised that he fell to the 6th round. I really am.
All right.
I talked about him on the show a couple times. I'm very high on him. He's not the second coming of Saquon Barkley by any means, but I think him going in the 6th round, I think, is a very, very that's a big steal for the excuse me, for the draft. And then, for Washington, I do like Sonny Styles. I think he's probably one of the best pure overall athletes in the draft. And you mentioned something a second ago. He was a safety.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a 6'5", 240-pound safety that has his athleticism? I would be almost tempted to just throw him back there a couple times just to scare the hell out of some people. You don't even have to worry about drops or whatever. Wide receivers would not dare go in his direction at all at 6'5", 244.
He kind of reminds me of Brian Urlacher in that way a little bit with his abilities. Brian Urlacher, former safety.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. Former Chicago Bear. I think he made it to the Hall of Fame too, didn't he? Brian
Urlacher, I don't know if he got in or not. Yeah, but, he probably did. I mean, you know what? I don't want to get sidetracked. Brian Urlacher was a really damn good player.
Yeah, he was.
I think he was a tad bit overrated. I think
a little bit overrated. Yeah, we can do a whole show on overrated guys.
Tom Brady can juke you out, and I've seen him do it to Urlacher. He made him fall right on his ass, man. Then I got to second guess your qualities as an athlete.
Yeah, but we both kind of thought that he may go to the Giants. I thought the Giants might swoop him up, but we're happy with Arvell Reese. But Washington probably got maybe the second or third best defender in the entire draft, and certainly the most athletic guy on defense. But the rest of their draft was kind of meh. But we'll see. The Commanders have a lot of making up to do for the terrible season that they had last year that you called, by the way.
Yes, I did. Thank you for reminding people. I appreciate that. And let's remind people that New Orleans still doesn't draft all that well. Jordan Tyson, okay, a little banged up, wide receiver out of Arizona State. But there's just more to it than that. I mean, there was a whole lot of different directions I thought they could go with this pick. Maybe even Ruben Bain. We'll get to him in a little bit. But they go with Jordan Tyson with their first overall pick, and they don't draft again until pick 42 in the 2nd round. They take the D tackle Christian Miller out of Georgia. Later on, they take Oscar Delp from Georgia. Again, same school, tight end. They address a few other needs, wide receiver. Later on, they take another one, Bryce Lane. TJ Hall, cornerback, late in the 7th round. But as far as Jordan Tyson goes, you give Chris Olave, a little, a running mate, somebody in the opposite side for your young quarterback, Tyler Shuck. But I'm not sure that Tyson was necessarily the right pick, given that they have other needs, especially on defense and an aging defense, and you got to build the shoes of DeMario Davis now. So Jordan Tyson really better come through as a big-time receiver. Otherwise, this will be a total bust.
Yeah, and one of the players that kind of gets overlooked in this draft is Sonny's little brother, Lorenzo Styles Jr.
How about that?
The second fastest time at the combine. I think it was like a 4.27 or 4.29 or something like that.
Impressive.
He's going to be really, really good. He comes out of a very well coached Matt Patricia defense. I can't believe I'm tooting the horn of a Buckeye, but I am surprised that New Orleans took Jordan Tyson this high considering his injury history. There could have been other ways you could have went if you really wanted a wide receiver, but again, they're the New Orleans Saints for a reason. So you combine bad drafts with minimal salary cap room and just bad luck sometimes. This is the reason why they're going to continue to be at the bottom of the NFC South for the foreseeable future. They did have a couple of sneaky picks. TJ Hall, I think, is going to be okay. He was a guy that was one time an all Big Ten player. And it's amazing when you look at a lot of these all-conference guys, how they end up falling to the mid to late rounds of the draft, which tells you a lot of times that college awards really don't mean all that much. Just ask Heisman winners. But overall, I think Oscar Delp is going to be a pretty good pick for them. They went back-to-back with Georgia guys, but Yeah, this is not. I don't like this draft at all by the Saints. But then again, you and I don't like anything that the Saints do.
Yeah, not big on that, man. We all big on this guy. What's up, McNiner? Saying what's up, fellas?
McNiner, how you doing?
Boom or bust, in his opinion. Yep. Yeah.
There was not a lot of middle ground here, man. There's going to be a lot of guys that are really good and a lot of guys that are really bad. And
we're not going to know overall for a while, man. It's going to take a while to figure all that shit out. But you know what? All we can do is project. And, with say, this team made the right decision, maybe not. Like Cleveland, they made a couple of really freaking good decisions in this draft. They went ahead and they took maybe the best offensive tackle out there in Spencer Fano from Utah. Then 2 wide receivers back to back. Later in round 1, they take Casey Concepcion, who's a bullet out there. He can play special teams, kid from Texas A&M. And then Denzel Boston, who was projected to go in the first round in some mock drafts, went in the second overall, kid out of Washington. So they addressed needs at wide receiver. Very good job there. And I think maybe one of the biggest deals of the draft, a guy that you and I both thought may go in the first round.
Say it.
Emmanuel McNeill-Warren out of Toledo, the safety. Yo, they nailed their drafts, man. They drafted other dudes. I can't get into everybody, obviously, but they nailed other positions. Cleveland, a grade A+ in my opinion, man. They did an awesome job. They still need to figure out some other things. And right now, they don't even know who their quarterback's going to be. Is it going to be Shedeur Sanders, Deshaun Watson, possibly even Dylan Gabriel? If they can figure out that position some freaking how, bro, this team can actually be legit.
Or could it be that 6'6" guy out of Arkansas, Taylor Green? I'm telling you, this guy is.
Oh, could you imagine? Really?
Yeah.
All right.
He's thrown, double-digit interceptions over the course of his career at Arkansas, but I've seen him play several times over the course of his career, and it's just for a guy to be that big. He's like a 6'6" Lamar Jackson type. He's very, very athletic, man. That guy is, and he's maybe not always the most accurate, but his arm, he's got a cannon for an arm, makes good decisions. He's smart. He's a really cool dude when you hear him on interviews and stuff. But did you know that the Cleveland Browns got Justin Jefferson?
Yeah, linebacker.
Not that Justin Jefferson. Cleveland. He ain't that damn right. But yeah, the Concepcion Boston duo.
On ESPN, Cleveland gets
man, they should have did it just to screw.
That would have been great.
But yeah, the Concepcion Boston duo those guys could end up both being starters. So, to give Sanders or whoever the hell the quarterback's going to be for Cleveland. But Emmanuel McNeill-Warren, 6'4" safety out of Toledo. He's one of my headliners. I'm really looking forward to seeing this guy play on Sundays, man. And you talked. I was joking about Sonny Styles being 6'5". This guy's 6'4", every bit as physical. He's everything you want in a safety, man. And the fact, he went second round, which is higher than a lot of people. I actually picked him to go in the first round, but yeah, Cleveland did really, really well in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, McNeill-Warren wasn't really necessarily positioned in need, but when they saw him on the board, they're like, how can we pass this up? And they made a really good decision right there. Let's see what McKnight is going to do to chime in. He likes the 49ers dribbling. He likes the height pick, and then the defensive tackle, Halton. We got offensive, and we're going to go through the Niners a little bit later. Willis and Cruz projected to be pretty good players, hopefully. I like the Duggar pick, the linebacker. We need to fill that position. We'll see, man, McNiner. We're going to get into it. We didn't have a first-round pick. We kept going out, which drove me crazy as I'm watching the draft, and it's getting late into the night, and I got to wake up early. My God. But he also says, but I am not a fan of the 49ers drafting a running back at all. Yeah, well, the thing about Christian McCaffrey is you don't know how healthy he's going to be for how long of a time, but the Kalon Black, the kid, again, we'll talk about that. We'll get into it. But, to keep it rolling over here, our next pick was the Dallas Cowboys. No, I'm sorry, the New York Giants, but we talked about them already with their top picks with the 5th and the 10th overall. They took Francis Mariota, CC Mariota, however his name is going to go. But the Dallas Cowboys, they move up just a little bit to make sure they get Caleb Downs with that pick right there. They go ahead and they grab him. Definitely a smart move. He could have gone earlier in this draft, but they also, later on in the first round with the 23rd overall pick, took Malachi Lawrence, who wasn't mocked in the first round everywhere, but I heard a lot of good things about, coming out of UCF. So maybe you question that pick a little bit, but it took another edge later in Barham, the kid from Michigan. I know you must know him pretty well. Drew Schulten. So they make a couple of pretty good picks later on, but Caleb Downs and Malachi Lawrence. What do you think of those two picks in the first round?
I like them both, and I think Dallas did themselves justice by picking like 4 of their 7 picks were defensive players.
Yeah.
And a couple of them were edge rushers. They went corner. They did draft a wide receiver in the 7th round. Not too familiar with Anthony Smith, but Jay Sean Barnum and Malachi Lawrence, those guys, potentially be starters right away on a defense that is very much in need of playmakers. These guys, they're kind of built to the same mold. They're very good on the edge. I think Barnum plays the run well. I've only seen Malachi Lawrence play a couple times, and I didn't really pay attention to him that much. But from what I hear, he's really good against the run, and as far as he shoots the gap well and all that other type of stuff. But he's also good enough to where if you need him in coverage, he's a guy that's also covered tight ends. So he's that athletic and he's got that much skill. But the Caleb Downs pick, to move up to get him, Dallas really had their mind made up that they wanted him, and they went and got him. And I like Dallas's draft. I can't admit that too loud as a. But I think maybe 4 of their 7 picks, 5 of their 7 picks, maybe. I think this Dallas, maybe 3 of those guys start and make impacts right away. So good for Dallas. They need defense bad.
And if they can figure out things with George Pickens, who has not signed that franchise tag yet, but if they can get him in-house, that'll be huge, man, because we know their offense can score a lot of points. They were the tops in the league again last year, but they gave up a hell of a lot of points. So, again, smart to go defense for the Dallas Cowboys right there. The Miami Dolphins were up next at pick number 12, and they took Caden Proctor, offensive lineman. We both had them taking an offensive lineman, I believe, just not that one. We had a different one. So they go with Caden Proctor out of Alabama. Later on in the first round, they take cornerback Chris Johnson from San Diego State, who I heard some pretty good things about. Jacob Rodriguez is a pick that a lot of people like, their 2nd-round pick out of Texas Tech. Dolphins had a lot of picks, man. They go tight end, wide receiver. They draft linebackers, safeties, offensive linemen. Not that many offensive linemen. I thought they would have gone a little bit more offensive lineman heavy, but again, they get the Caden Proctor. But Miami did address a lot of needs, and again, like the Jets, they had a lot of needs. So it's like they really can't miss over here. So we'll see how well these, especially the couple of first-round draft picks, actually do.
Well, yeah, and Jacob Rodriguez, for those of you who don't know, this guy he swept he won the Nagurski Award, he won the Butkus Award, he won the Bednarik Award. I believe he won like 4 or 5 postseason awards. So you talk about a guy that's highly decorated. He's 6'1", 230. He kind of puts you in the mind of like what the Lions have with Alex Anzalone. He's one of those high motor guys, very smart. I like watching Texas Tech play, so I probably watched 6-7 of their games this past season. And he's a really, really good player. And the fact that he went, some people didn't have him going as high as he did. Some mocks had him like 3rd or 4th round. So the fact that he went in the 2nd round, this is kind of a win for Miami. I don't know which direction Miami's going in the future, but to start with Caden Proctor, a 6'6", 350-pound mammoth of a man, and then you had 10 picks. You hope a couple of those guys hit, but Miami still has a very uncertain future profit as far as I'm concerned. And as far as the quarterback position, the wide receivers, they gave up the house. And throwing a white flag is definitely a rebuild for Miami. But to start off a rebuild with a guy like Caden Proctor coming in as one of your cornerstones, at least Malik Willis, if nothing else, he'll be protected on that side.
Yeah. So again, my opinion, go from the inside out, offensive line, defensive line, build that out. Of course, you got to get your quarterback. And did the Rams get their quarterback at number 13? They shocked the world, baby, taking Ty Simpson. Only Ty Simpson and McVay apparently knew about it, having these secret meetings for like a week that they didn't tell anybody about. And good job out of them. It did not leak out. And if it did, nobody said anything. Everybody shut their mouth. Ty Simpson, 13th overall, quarterback out of Alabama, goes to the Rams, waiting for Matthew Stafford, the answer to today's trivia question, ironically, for him to retire. And will it be next year, the year after that? But McVay made it very clear this is Matthew Stafford's team as far as the draft goes. Otherwise, the Rams only had 5 picks overall.
Yeah.
No surprise they take a tight end. Kid out of Ohio State, Max Clare. They love their tight ends. They love going 13 personnel, the Rams. So as many tight ends as they can get, they're going to get these guys. But they get C.J. Daniels, wide receiver out of Miami, and then Tim Keenan later on, Keegan Traw. So there wasn't much they can do, so they took the best guys on the board that they thought were available. But the Ty Simpson one is the one where they took a quarterback when they wanted to take one and not when they had to take one. And they felt that they were in a good enough position with already using that 29th overall pick on Trent McDuffie is basically the way they're looking at it as. Is like, all right, that's our first overall pick. The guy that they got from Kansas City, their cornerback. So you know what? They feel like they're a team that could afford to wait and take a quarterback now. And they must really like him, man. Again, he only played 15 games all last season. So they must really, really like him to draft him 13th overall, because for a team that's that close to getting to the Super Bowl, you would think that maybe you take one of the better players on the board to try to help you out this year and win it all this year. But that was not their mindset.
Yeah, and I think, and this is one of my head scratchers, because I actually joked around last week and had Pittsburgh Steelers drafting Ty Simpson. Just kind of a joke when we did our mock draft last week. I don't know if I would have. I think I had them picking an offensive lineman to kind of keep Stafford protected. If this is kind of like another all-in season for the Rams, considering the disappointment that they had last year in the playoffs. But if anybody's going to be able to make a quarterback work, I don't know if Ty Simpson. I think Sean McVay is the guy that can make this work. I just don't know if I would have took Ty Simpson 13th overall. That I think that was kind of a reach. There were so many other good players available, but this is where kind of like F them picks, which has been the Rams model for a long time, kind of comes back and bites you, because as you mentioned, they only had 5 picks in the entire draft. It's not like they had a lot of holes, but a team, they're a little, it's with the, there's still a lot of different ways, in my opinion. I'm sure you feel this way too, that they could have went, other than, going to grab a quarterback that's not even going to play for a year or two, considering how, depending on how good Matthew Stafford feels going forward. So good for them. There was some people that said that, Sean McVay was a little upset at this pick, but it was a smoke screen. He was satisfied with the pick. And if anybody, like I said, can make it work, it's going to be Sean McVay. So we'll see in a couple of years.
He just wanted to make sure that it was clear it was Matt Stafford's team. As far as the other picks, you had them taking an offensive lineman. I had them taking a wide receiver, but they go with the quarterback, Ty Simpson. And speaking of which, I forgot to mention earlier on that we had our contest, Prime and I.
Oh, yeah.
As far as the draft goes, with, the more correct picks you get, obviously, the more points you get, and so on and so forth. We had a whole system. Prime edged me out with the last overall pick by saying that Seattle was going to draft a running back. He won by 2 points, 34-32. So well done. If it wasn't for that last pick, that 2 points, we would have been tied, and I would have been satisfied. But no, he had to win. Won the whole damn thing, man. So job well done out of you.
There you go. Thank you.
Job well done. All right, so the Baltimore Ravens are up next, and they went with Vega Olayani. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, out of Penn State, and he is a mammoth of a man. More of a guard than an offensive lineman, if I'm not, than an offensive tackle, if I'm correct over there. So that was the position that they went first overall, Baltimore. They had other positions that they could have addressed, like edge early, but I think they got a little bit lucky with Zion Young out of Missouri in the second round. So that worked out pretty well. They drafted a couple of wide receivers, a couple of tight ends, actually. They had a lot of picks. They addressed the offensive line. So Baltimore overall had a pretty good draft, in my opinion, especially with the first 2 picks with Ioane and Zion Young.
Well, I think both of us picked Ioane to go to the Ravens.
No, I think you predicted him correctly, but I had Sadiq going to Baltimore. But yeah, you actually got that one right.
Yeah, he's a really really good player. Zion Young, I think the thing that I like about him is he's a really big guy. He's 6'6", very athletic. You know, watch a lot of SEC football this year. Unfortunately, they throw it in your face all the damn time. Jacoby Lane is the other receiver of Malachi Lemon out of USC. Pretty good. Not as, you know, he's probably may not be as good as a third round pick, but you know, when you have the ability that Lamar Jackson has to kind of make things happen, a lot of times all you got to do is just, you know, find yourself an open spot, even if it's not within the route. You know, Lamar gets to scrambling around. Next thing you know, you find yourself open. And Jacoby Lane, I think, is going to be, you know, he could end up being a starter. He's a big guy, 6'4", which is what they need. But I think one of the draft picks people aren't talking about is Rayshawn Benny out of Michigan. He was a 7th round pick. Very good against the run. He's one of those guys that, you know, he can be a rotation guy, but I think within the next year or two, you know, given the opportunity, I think this guy could be a starter. They had 11 picks in this draft. That's a lot of picks.
Crazy.
Of course, a lot of those guys aren't going to be around, but, you know, again, it always goes, you know, we've had hit or miss on 3 separate weeks here, and it's going to be very interesting to see how many of these guys end up making the Baltimore roster with new head coach Jesse Minter.
Yep, that's right. That's right. We'll see how he does in his first year. Going back real quick, McNard saying initially McVay didn't look happy about the draft pick, talking about Ty Simpson, but on day 2 he did damage control.
Yeah.
Little LOL over there. Yeah, I mean, maybe he did, but yeah, again, he made sure that he let everybody know it's Matthew Stafford's team, and that is the bottom freaking line because Stone Cold said so, and that's it. And then this next guy was Stone Cold. Let me tell you, man, the number 15th overall pick, I've never seen a number 15th overall pick so freaking pissed off in my entire life. Ruben Bain Jr. from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, now going to Tampa Bay. Wow, was he mad that he freaking was waiting in that room that long? He thought he was a top 10 pick, no doubt. Had the numbers, had the stats, showed on the big game, on the big screen, he can get to the quarterback and do everything. He went up there. He was all business, man. This guy is ready to go. Watch out. He's a possible defensive player of the year. They also take Josiah Trotter out of Missouri, linebacker. They address wide receiver a little bit later on. Their draft was pretty good, Tampa Bay, because they addressed offensive line, tight end, and defensive line. So I like what they did. But surely Ruben Bain Jr. fell into their lap, man.
Yeah, and he, you know, this guy was first team All-American, you know, and a lot of people had him, you know, top 10 at least. But the thing is that he falls into a good situation, you know. He's going to be filling, you know, I think Anzalone went down there. They lost Levante David. So there's a possibility that he can come right in, you know, and start. You know, he's had.
Oh, I think he does.
Yeah, he's had, you know, 10 plus sacks. The guy's, you know, despite what people say about his arm length and his lack of sometimes explosiveness, you know, his techniques, you know, his swim moves, his dipping, his all that type of stuff, his bend, as they like to say, for a defensive and edge rusher type player. He's got all the intangibles, man. He's maybe a little bit more undersized than you would like at 6'2", so he may be more standing up than he is, you know, actually lining up on the edge. But Ruben Bain is going to be a menace for the NFC South, and now that he's probably going to end up playing with a chip on his shoulder because he felt that he should have went higher than 15th, Tampa Bay may be onto something there as they try to regain their chokehold on that very, very highly competitive NFC South.
Yeah. Yeah, right, really. Yeah, and also Ruben Bain gets to play with his Miami running mate from last year in the championship game, Keontae Scott, defensive back, who a lot of people think is going to be really, really good. So Tampa Bay may have done a nice job on defense in the draft, which is something they had to address because they blew games last year, and it was not pretty, my friend. Did not look good. Next up is the New York Jets. We already went over them. They took Kenyon Sadiq with the tight end out of Oregon at number 16. At number 17 was your Detroit Lions, who went offensive line. Thought that was a very smart move. They get Blake Miller out of Clemson. I like that move. That's a Dan Campbell type of thing to do right there. So that made total sense to me with them going there. And then the Lions also pick up Derek Moore, another edge out of Michigan, to go with Aiden Hutchinson. So we'll see if they can, get their Wolverine roots together. And Jimmy Rolder is another one out of Michigan that they drafted. So they were very high on your area over there. And, I had some other picks. So they're your team, Detroit. Do you like what they did? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the fact that they drafted Derek Moore, and it was funny because Brad Holmes was in his press conference afterwards, and he kind of nudged the fans a little bit in the media because they have been pressing him so hard to get an edge rusher, and he kind of was like, all right, are you guys happy now? So Derek Moore, I think, is going to be really, really good. Just the motivation, the fact that he gets to line up, on the opposite side of his former running buddy. Jimmy Boulder is going to be a solid guy. He may be more of a special teams guy, but who knows? And Tyree West out of Tennessee, I think, is going to be a bit of a surprise. He'll be a rotation guy, but I think overall I would have liked to see them maybe address the offensive line, maybe get another offensive lineman, simply because I'm still not sold on a couple of the young guys that they had there. But the main thing with the Lions was shoring up that defense and getting a pass rush, which is kind of opposite to what they do, because the Lions have always been like a stop the run first kind of defense. But I think Brad Holmes is starting to realize that, hey, we've had two really, a year where we didn't make the playoffs last year, and a year where we got our asses kicked by a rookie quarterback in the first round of the playoffs after going 15-2 the year before that. So I think they're kind of switching up their philosophy a little bit. Let's get to the quarterback, and that's, in that division especially, you got some guys that can move, and getting to the quarterback, rushing the quarterback is definitely a priority. So at least they addressed that. The rest of the draft was kind of average, but with that offense, the Lions could be a team that's right back in the mix of the NFC.
All right, and then their NFC North Division rival over there, Caleb Banks, goes to number 18, kid out of Florida, defensive tackle, to the Minnesota Vikings. A little bit of a surprise to me. I didn't think they were going to go there. I thought there were other players on the board that were a little bit better. They take Jake Golday at a Cincinnati linebacker. They address defensive tackle and offensive tackle as well. They even drafted fullback and Max Bredesen out of Michigan,
baby.
Another Michigan guy. So you got to love that. I know that. So a few draft needs that they addressed, but I think they may have reached on a few guys in Minnesota. I don't love their draft, man. I don't think they helped themselves out too well, unless Caleb Banks turns out to be a total stud. I'm not really sure about this one.
Yeah, that was kind of like another head scratcher. For a defensive tackle to be 6'6", that's huge. So you're definitely going to have
literally
you're going to definitely have issues trying to run the football against Minnesota up the middle. But I think overall, I think they had a couple of other holes that they could have addressed. I would have liked to see them shore up the running back position maybe a little bit sooner. I would like to see them maybe stress a little bit more offensive linemen, even though Caleb Tiernan out of Northwestern, 6'8", man. The guy is just, you just put him out there. He doesn't even need technique. You just be like, go over there, just get in somebody's way and let us do our thing. Max Bredesen could, he'll probably end up being a tight end when it's all said and done. But yeah, I'm with you. I think they kind of, with the amount of picks that they had, I think they had 9 picks in this draft. I think the only one that's probably a for sure hit is their first overall pick. And there's kind of people scratching their heads as to why they went for a defensive tackle that high in the draft when there were so many other players that were available that they could have used. Safety,
right?
One of them.
Yeah, not a huge fan of their draft, but okay, we'll see. Carolina, they did a pretty decent job. I love the Monroe Freeling. I actually nailed that one on the head. Kid out of Georgia, offensive tackle. So that was a nice pick right there. They go D tackle after that with Lee Hunter out of Texas Tech. They addressed cornerback and safety, which are definitely needs for them because they were giving up points at the end of last year big time. So Carolina did a good job addressing needs. I think they overall had a pretty good draft. And they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 picks. I think maybe they made the most out of them. So I like what Carolina did, but nothing eye-popping where you can say, "Oh, wow, that's juicy. That looks good." It's just more smart picks. I feel like Carolina made this time.
No, and I think if anybody's going to jump out and have the potential to be like a surprise for them, will be Will Lee III, the cornerback out of Texas A&M, 6'1", 6'2". He's a really, really good player. But other than that, yeah, they had a solid draft. They made the best of the situation. And this is what happens when you're not picking in the top 3 or 4 all the time. I think this might have been a surprise for Carolina, the fact that they were picking this far down in the draft. They're not
Yeah,
used
right.
to this. They're not
No?
used to this. So, yeah, very average. Monroe Freeling, of course, will be probably either stud for the next 10 to 12 years. But a lot of people don't realize he's only got 17 starts under his belt. So that's kind of where the Ty Simpson argument comes in. But I think it's a bit different when you're a quarterback as opposed to an offensive lineman. I think if you're good, you're good. And to be that big and that strong and that highly rated, I think it's just, I think Carolina's set at their tackle position. It's just a matter of what they do for the rest of their offense. I'm not sure how you feel about that. And maybe a hole or two here on defense. But, yeah, overall, just a very average draft for the Panthers.
Yeah, but they're getting better. They still have a long way to go. There's no doubt about it. And Philadelphia is kind of revamping that wide receiver room a little bit. They go with Mekhi Lemon out of USC, number 20 overall pick. I heard that the Steelers were thinking about taking him at 21. We'll talk about their pick in a second. But Mekhi Lemon goes to Philadelphia. They also address tight end Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt, which means that
very good pick.
Jalen Hurts may have to start throwing the ball over the middle a little bit more, and not just always outside the numbers. And he's always been afraid to do that. He doesn't want to throw an interception. He's scared to death. But you got to take chances in the NFL, and if you're going to bring guys in like that, there you go. So Cole Payton, quarterback from North Dakota State. Like all other North Dakota State quarterbacks, they're not going to be good, so he'll sit there and hold the clipboard, and that'll be that.
Wait a minute now.
Yeah, just got a boom, boom right there. But overall, Philly had a decent draft. Nothing crazy, but we'll see how Mekhi Lemon turns out to be, because they're going to be losing A.J. Brown, who is a stud wide receiver. And say what you want about him, he's a stud. So he's got pretty big shoes to fill.
Yeah, and they went draft-wise, they went with a couple of offensive linemen, which is smart considering one of the hallmarks of Philadelphia is always having a really good offensive line. You can never have too many good offensive linemen. I kind of like the Cole Payton pick, and I'm going to just probably state the obvious that he'll probably end up Taysom Hill type player. If you watched him at North Dakota State, he's dynamic. I mean, I understand it's North Dakota State and everything, but I watch FCS football as well. He is really, really, he's a very dynamic playmaker. They could have a couple of packages for him. Who knows? But the elephant in the room that they had to address, which is what they did, was Mekhi Lemon. Because we all know that A.J. Brown after June 1st is bye-bye. I would have honestly liked to see them maybe go draft another receiver and then maybe plug in a hole or two here on defense. But it's Philadelphia, and I talk about it before. It doesn't matter what the hell Howie Roseman does. It just works.
Yeah, it does.
You take Lemon. You take your chances there. You lose A.J. Brown. You give Jalen Hurts another weapon over the middle with Eli Stowers, who's probably had all the best measurables at the combine, 6'4". That was Diego Pavia's main target there. So yeah, but Howie Roseman just seems to make stuff work, man. So at this point, just never count the Eagles out. They could have had a bunch of 6-round picks and that's it, and they probably still figure out a way to get to the freaking NFC Championship game.
Yeah, man. Look, it's every other year with Philadelphia, so watch out this year. You don't know what's going to happen. We shall see. All right, so they're native to the west in the state of Pennsylvania is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they went with Max Ihenacher, Arizona State offensive tackle. Big dude, so I like that pick right there for Pittsburgh. It makes sense. You got to protect whoever your quarterback is going to be, even though they took Drew Aller in the 3rd round, which I do not like, because you already have the Howard kid, O.J. Howard. You assume that Aaron Rodgers is coming back. They put the unrestricted franchise tag on him today, which means that, he's basically going to be a Steeler, or they're going to trade him, and I don't see anybody trading for Aaron Rodgers. So if he plays, he'll be a Steeler, and we'll have Jeremy Bernard from Alabama to throw the ball to as well. They brought in Michael Pittman Jr. and to go along with DK Metcalf. So they got players over there. They drafted this kid, Caden Wetchen, out of Iowa, also another wide receiver. So they had a lot of draft picks of Pittsburgh, and I think they hit on a lot of them. But the Drew Aller pick, I really don't understand that one. I think there were much better picks in the 3rd round they could have gone with than a third string quarterback at this point.
Yeah, and I think they're going to end up going, when it's all said and done, I think Will Howard's going to end up being a starter, because there were a lot of people that were high on him at the combine last year. And there were a lot of people that are as the season progressed and as they kind of watched him in practice and stuff like that, were still very high on him as the starting quarterback coming into next season, depending on what happens with Aaron Rodgers. Jeremy Bernard is going to be a very interesting pick, because the fact that he played alongside Ryan Williams, for those of you who don't know who Ryan Williams is, he's the hype equivalent of Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. I think he just turned 20 years old. And you talk about he's not the biggest. This guy is awesome. And I hate Alabama with every fiber of my being. But he is, so Jeremy Bernard having the benefit of playing alongside of Ryan Williams, it's going to be interesting to see once he's in the spotlight in the NFL, if he's able to kind of do things on his own. He is a little, he's a little bit not as fast as you probably would like, your number one or number two receiver to be, but he's really good at, 50-50 balls, catching balls in traffic and stuff like that, which in today's NFL you have to, simply because these corners are getting so much better and these defensive backs are so much better. It seems like a lot of catches now are in traffic in some way, shape, or form. But the steal of the highlight of their draft, of course, was the big 6'5" tackle that they took out of Arizona State. He's a big dude. And he's mean. He's nasty. And he just doesn't like people. So good for them.
There you go. That's always a good trait in a lineman, man. All right, McLeod chiming in. Steelers ain't putting their eggs in one basket. No, man. Look, Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers, man. They're going to do what they have to do. But this will be his last year if he does come in. I can tell you that right now. That'll be it. Chiming in one more time, McNine over here. At least they didn't make the Browns approach and get 5 quarterbacks to see if one sticks to the wall. I know. Yeah, they got it really is. I mean, that's one of the big questions going into the offseason, man. It's unbelievable. Who's going to be their freaking quarterback?
So it wasn't a Stefanski thing. It's just a Cleveland Browns thing.
Of course, it's a
Cleveland carry 7 quarterbacks on the roster, and
they ain't been good since Bernie Kosar, man. It's been a long time since they've been any freaking
Tim Couch.
Tim K. Oh yeah, he was a real freaking wild man. He was a Buster-Rooney right there. I think he was the 2nd overall pick. That did not work out. Not at all.
It was bad.
But Cleveland. My goodness, didn't they draft Brady Quinn also?
Yes, they did.
They make some good choices. Anyway. Oh, man, the Chargers were up at number 22, and they take Ruben Bain's boy on the other side of the Miami defensive line, Akeem Mesidor, another edge player, maybe just as good as Ruben Bain, put up really good numbers, a lot of tackles for loss. So definitely the Chargers making a nice pick there. They didn't have another pick until way later, pick 63. They took Jake Slaughter, an offensive lineman out of Florida. Didn't have a ton of picks. Genesis Smith is a pick that a lot of people like, safety out of Arizona. Nick Barrett out of South Carolina, another defensive tackle they took, and a few offensive linemen later. So not like a whole lot of studs. It wasn't like an amazing draft, but I like their first pick in Akeem Mesidor. I think that was a pretty good job.
Yeah, and first of all, don't glaze over the fact that they picked an offensive lineman from Oregon. Don't glaze over that. Alex Harkey.
Right, you got to show the duck respect.
6'3". Exactly. So, yeah, Mesidor, I think, was the highlight of this draft. I think, the fact that he ended up falling to where he did, I think may have shocked a lot of people. I think he may be a little bit more pissed off than Ruben Bain was. But at the same time, he was every bit as good, if not better, than Ruben Bain. You could probably close your eyes and those guys, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference, as far as their abilities. Of course, Jim Harbaugh is going to be able to make it work. Of course, he's going to have a stud defensive end or a stud defense. I like the Jake Slaughter pick, although considering the lack of success of Florida quarterbacks over the last few years, it's kind of like, is he just like the best of a bad situation? The Nick Barrett pick, I think, could end up being a sleeper. He's only like 6'2", 6'3", but he's really, really good. South Carolina, for all their offensive ineptitude that they've had over the last couple of years, have actually had a really good defense. So he could be a guy that could potentially, start or at least be a key rotation guy. But, yeah, the highlight of their draft, of course, was Mesidor, and I'm expecting very, very big things from him. this coming season.
And McKnight are expecting big things from Jake Slaughter. So there was a great pick
Yep.
for center over there.
Yep.
Jake Slaughter for the okay. So the Chargers may have had a better draft overall. We shall see. All right. Next, real quick, 23. We already went over the Dallas Cowboys. That's where they took Malachi Lawrence. At 24, that's where the Cleveland Browns took Casey Concepcion at 24, kid out of Texas A&M wide receiver. So now we're up to the 25th pick. That was the Chicago Bears and Dylan Thieneman, your boy again, out of Oregon, safety. Great pick right there. Now, a lot of people thought maybe you go defensive line. They needed edge rush help, and they really did not address that in the draft. So that is a little bit of an eyebrow raiser. Like, you couldn't find somebody in the second or maybe even third round, an edge rusher, but no, they needed to draft a center because Drew Dolman no longer there. So they take Logan Jones out of Iowa, big rough dude. All right, they take another tight end. They want to go 13 personnel, 12 personnel, taking Sam Roush out of Stanford, a kid who can block. He can do a lot of things. Malik Muhammad, a good cornerback out of Texas. So overall, I think the Bears had a pretty decent draft addressing their needs. I just thought that maybe they should have gone edge rusher over safety. But this kid, Dylan Thieneman, is supposed to be the real deal.
Yeah, and the fact that they didn't draft an edge rusher at all, I think kind of shocks a lot of people. And it's like,
that's
damn,
why maybe their A- grade becomes maybe like a B+ grade right there, because that was like it's Montez Sweat, and that's kind of like it.
That's it. I mean, he's the only guy like in the top 100 as far as like, from a QB pressure standpoint. So they really, for as good as they are, Chicago's a really good collective defense. But as far as like getting to the quarterback and things like that, you're exactly right, man. They really shocked people by not even addressing the edge rusher position at all. So and there's really not a lot of good free agents out there. You're not going to trade for anybody. So it's going to be interesting to see Chicago this next season, though, how they handle that.
Interesting. You just said trade. I keep getting Max Crosby in my head somehow. Like the Bears are somehow going to end up with this guy. Somehow they're going to get this guy. I don't know how, but the Bears are going to get Max Crosby.
If they do, at least now with the Lions, you have Penei Sewell and then Blake Miller now on the other side. So good luck for Max Crosby trying to get to those, get to Jared Goff when you got those two man mountains over there bookending your offensive line. But clearly the high point of this draft was Dylan Thieneman out of Oregon. He's all Big Ten, all American. He's as good as it gets at safety. He's everything you want, plays hard, smart, leads your defense. He can be your green dot guy, your communicator out there on the field. He's all over the place, and he strives in tight end defense. I think he allowed the fewest catches when guarding a tight end in the country, if I read my stats correctly. And he's fast for a safety. So he'd be able to chase some guys down should somebody break through the line and start, heading 20, 30, 40 yards downfield. He's a guy that can kind of chase you down. But this is clearly the highlight of their draft. And again, very shocked that they didn't go edge rusher here at all. I can't.
Yep. Did not even address it, man. Very interesting. But okay, we'll see how it shakes out for him. Here was my head scratcher of the entire first round. The 26th overall pick, the Houston Texans move up to take Kalen Rutledge, Georgia Tech offensive guard. Why did they need to move up to take him? I really don't understand that. I mean, they still, had two second-round picks. I understand that. They get Caden McDonald out of Ohio State, defensive tackle. Some people like him. Some people are like, I'm not sure about him. But I thought that they kind of busted their draft from the beginning, man. Why are you moving up to take Kalen Rutledge? Did you really think that you couldn't get him 2 picks later when they stood at 28? I don't understand that. So giving up that bad move right there. And then they took a bunch of guys who you're like, all right, linebacker Wade Wooders from Clemson, Kamari Ramsey from USC. They take another wide receiver, see if he's going to stick and Lewis Bond. But overall, I don't think the Texans did a good job.
No, and if anything, I mean, if you're going to move up to take Rutledge, you move up and take McDonald. Right. I don't get that at all. He wasn't on anybody's radar enough to warrant you to trade up to get him. But I think, Houston needed to address their offensive line. That's not a surprise. However, there were still several really good offensive linemen that you could have took before you decided to trade up. And then a guy at a Georgia Tech, the good thing that you're going to get with a Georgia Tech offensive lineman is that he's very good run blocker, because Georgia Tech with Haynes King, who I think got drafted or either signed or drafted, behind that Georgia Tech running attack. So he's really, really good against the run. And if that's what Cleveland's or Houston's looking for to kind of shore up that running game a little bit, to kind of make things a little bit easier for C.J. Stroud, I get that. Martin Klein is a really, really good tight end. I won't say really, really good. He's good out of Michigan, 6'6", very athletic, kind of puts you like a baby Colston Loveland. But the rest of their picks are kind of like, okay, the guard, the linebacker, Wade Wooders from Clemson. Some people are high on him, some people are not. The Clemson games I watched over this past couple seasons with him really wasn't impressed. So I'm not sure. That's a head scratcher, like you said, for Houston.
Yeah.
For a team that's trying to get back into the mix.
Not a fan of their draft, man. Definitely not. All right. So next up at 27, the Dolphins picked again. We already went over it. This is where they took Chris Johnson, the cornerback from San Diego State. After that was the 28th pick, where Caleb Lamu, the Utah offensive tackle, this might be a steal late on in the draft for the New England Patriots to try to solidify that offensive line right there. Again, this is a position where Lamu can end up playing guard, maybe tackle, maybe take over for Morgan Moses at right tackle. We'll see how it shakes out. But their idea is just get the best 5 freaking blockers that we could possibly get, run blockers, pass blockers, and put them up there and protect Drake May and get the ball to Travion Henderson and so on and so forth. So I think the Patriots, who are already a really stacked team and looking to be getting A.J. Brown in the next month and a half or so, whatever it's going to be, taking an offensive lineman first overall was a good idea. Then they go with an edge. They take Illinois Gabe Jackas, I believe is the way it is. Not Jackass, guys. Jackas. So don't start saying that shit. Yes, and they address other needs, offensive tackle, linebacker. They would take a running back later and Jam Miller, kid out of Alabama. So I think the Patriots overall did a pretty good job. But again, not a lot of names where you're going to be like, oh my God, look what the Patriots did. I think, again, smart moves by a smart room. And Mike Vrabel, even though he wasn't there on day 3, I still think did a pretty good job.
Yeah, he was too busy damage control, but we won't get into that. So I think
he became a fireman that day. He was putting out fires all over the place, man.
Yeah. Oh man, we can go so many different directions with that analogy, but we won't because we're a family show.
Exactly. PG, baby.
Bullshit. I think Lemieux was probably the obvious pick because the way that Will Campbell struggled in the Super Bowl with his short arms.
Well, let me address that real quick. Yeah, I mean it is. Look, he in the beginning of the year he started out pretty damn good. Will Campbell. Then he got hurt, and then he definitely did not perform well in the playoffs or the Super Bowl, especially. So I will say that. How much of that was injury related? I don't know. We'll see how he bounces back.
I think it had everything to do with the short arm. No, I'm just kidding. But and then
maybe him and Ruben Bain should get a condo together.
There you go. Oh my God. Hey, can you reach the top shelf? Nope, can't do it. Well, guess we're eating ramen out. Anyway, I'm sorry. Anyway, so, and then your boy, Morgan Moses is 76 years old.
Yeah, right.
So it was
starting
time
the
for
Red Sea right now.
Yeah, it was time for them to kind of shore up their offensive tackle position, and that's exactly what they did. One of the picks that I like, and he'll never play, I watched Baron Morton, the quarterback out of Texas Tech, at the Combine, and you talk about a guy with an arm. He kind of reminds me, and this is out there. His RPMs and his quickness, release, and all. It reminds me of Matthew Stafford. This young man, this guy has an arm, and if you get an opportunity, he's only 6'2". If you get an opportunity, watch a replay or go look it up online. Go watch his combine throws. The guy can rip it. He's never going to play because Drake May is the guy. But this draft was solely focused for them on getting another offensive lineman to kind of get a little bit younger, a little bit more athletic, and that's exactly what they did. The rest of their picks are kind of yawn. But at the same time, Mike Vrabel is one of those guys that can coach people up. So He doesn't
No doubt.
necessarily need the superstars in the draft to accomplish what they're trying to maintain there in New England. As long as he can stay away from reporters, he'll be just fine.
Yeah, McNiner in the chat says that he thought that Lama was going to be the O-line that the Niners were going to take. And, yeah, maybe they could have had a chance at him if they stood pat or whatever, or moved up, a pick instead of moving back like they always do and drive me crazy. But we don't need good old linemen. I love it. Yeah, right. Who needs good old linemen, right? Give me a freaking break.
What do you say? Hey, T-Rex and alligators are short-armed apex predators, and he's exactly right.
That's right, man. Hey, they get the job done, bro. And Reuben Bain and Will Campbell, they'll get the job done. So let them hang out all they want with their short arms and have a good time.
They shake hands. Anyway, there's so many jokes.
There is. We're not kidding, bro. So, all right. So, Kansas City picked 29th. We had already gone over them, where they moved up to take Mansour Delane with the 6th overall pick, and then they took Peter Woods later on with number 29. Got a Clemson D tackle. The Jets we went over. This is where at number 30 they took Omar Cooper Jr., wide receiver out of Indiana. The Titans went back into the first round, as we mentioned earlier, and they took Keldrick Faulk here, which was, I think, a really nice job out of them to solidify their first round out of Auburn. And then the last pick, where you were close on it, as we went through our predictions, which running back did you have? Who was it? I had
originally, I think I had Kaytron Allen.
Kaytron Allen, right. Yep. It ends up being Jadarian Price, who was Notre Dame's other running back. So the two running backs out of Notre Dame go in the first round. Amazing. So Jadarian Price, pick for Seattle right there, their first overall pick. I like it. I don't love it because I don't know how great he's going to be. And again, they were a team that was just in the Super Bowl and won the damn thing. So it's not like they have a whole ton of positions they need to address, but some people do question it. Some like their drafts, some don't like it as much. They get another safety in Bud Clark, kid out of TCU, and they go cornerback again with Julian Neal out of Arkansas. Mm-hmm. Again, later on, they do another cornerback kid out of Toledo, Andre Fuller. Another cornerback in Michael Dansby out of Arizona. So what do you think Seattle was concentrating on? Because they lost a lot in the secondary this offseason. So they needed to make up for that, and they sure freaking did, man. So a lot of draft picks in the secondary where they needed help. But their first overall pick, running back Jadarian Price, the last overall pick in the first round.
Yeah, and again, this goes back to he split time with Love, but I won't. He was not on Love's level, but from a running back perspective, he was probably, he's probably the second or third ranked running back. I was high on Kaytron Allen simply because I watched him so many times this season, and a lot of people, when they do these ranks and their mocks and all this and that, they don't really sit and watch these guys. And Jadarian Price is a very good receiver. He's probably a little bit more shifty than Jeremiah Love, but just a little, but he's, I've seen him a lot of times too shift right into the arms of a defensive end too. So take that for what it's worth.
Some are saying Prime that he could be an every down back, but how do we know that? Because he wasn't an every down back at Notre Dame. I mean, He took way less snaps. So I don't know. I mean, they really must see something.
Yeah, when people talk, when they say stuff, they don't really, okay, so he didn't play every down at Notre Dame, so what makes you think he can be, from a physical standpoint, he probably could handle the workload. But then again, every down back nowadays in the NFL is not the 25, 30 carries that you and I are used to with Thurman Thomas and Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith.
Right.
Now it's like 18 carries. Oh, he's a workhorse with 21 carries. It's like, come on. But I think Seattle was very hell-bent on rebuilding that defense since they did lose a few guys in the offseason. And again, when you're the Super Bowl champs, you're not going to be picking that high. You're not going to have the pick of the litter. You got to make the best of a bad situation, which, we'll see. I don't think they're going to repeat by any stretch of the imagination, but they want to at least kind of maintain and stay competitive. So good job for them overall. They kind of got the crumbs that were left at the bottom of the pizza box when you're eating the cheese that's baked on and the little piece of sausage that may have fell off to the side. That's all they got. So we'll see.
That's good shit, man. Excellent. All right, Seattle, defending champions. Makes me sick to say, but it's true. It is what it is. And the 49ers, man, they were in the first round. They jumped out. So they took the first overall pick in the second round, and they went with Deshaun Stribling. McNiner, convince me that these are good picks. So they go with Stribling out of Mississippi. Then they take an edge rusher, which I'm happy with, but Romello Height wasn't maybe necessarily the guy I had in mind out of Texas Tech. Now that was in the 3rd round. So again, you're not getting your top flight guys. Then we go running back with our next 3rd round pick in Kalen Black, the kid out of Indiana. I'm all right with getting a running back, but maybe not that high. Then comes a Carver Willis is a good pick, the offensive guard out of Washington. Yeah. I like that. I thought they made a pretty good pick there. They took Jaden Duggar, linebacker out of Louisiana. I like that pick, and they again addressed offensive line with their last pick in round 5 with Enrique Cruz. So what the 49ers did was accrue a lot of mid-round drafts in this overall drafts period, because they kept drafting out of their first pick and they kept getting more and more picks later on. So we're hoping that these guys are going to hit, and you want to believe in Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, but it hasn't always worked out. Stribling, McNider saying he likes the player, just not at number 33. I can get on board with that. Maybe he is a good player, but I feel like we could have done a lot more damage at that pick. And talking about pancake blocks, runs the ball to the ref fluid with running back vision. We're talking about Kalen Black, and he likes the high pick. Going to replace Bryce Huff, who he's talking about over here on defense. So Romello Height, let's see if he can come in, because we drafted Mikael Williams last year, and the guy missed half the season. So the 49ers had a lot of holes to fill.
Well, I do think that they were desperate to address the wide receiver position.
Yeah.
I don't know if Stribling, he was the favorite target of Trinidad Chambliss, and that offense was fairly explosive. However, I think there were other, you probably could have traded up maybe and stopped trading out of the first round and maybe got a better wide receiver, somebody that you were actually looking for instead of somebody that you actually had to settle for. So I think this is one of those situations where desperation kind of makes you do things that you're not necessarily willing to do. And didn't you guys lose D. Winters a couple days ago too?
Yes, we did. Yes, we
did. So if it's not injuries, you guys are losing guys to free agency and trades and whatnot. So the rest of their draft, I am keen on them drafting a couple offensive linemen and kind of trying to shore up their defense a little bit with Duggar and Halton. So, and then, Romello Height, another one of those guys out of Texas Tech. He was on the other side of your boy. Actually, no, he wasn't. I'm sorry. But he was one of those guys that kind of gets lost in the shot. I think he's going to be he's an underrated guy, but he's small for an edge rusher. So he's another one of those guys that may end up standing up and playing the linebacker position. But, again, this is the 49ers. They don't have a great draft history, as you well know. So,
no, they don't.
But they won 12 games last year, and I don't believe it.
It really is amazing how they did it. Hopefully they could do it again. McNider is saying Halton is similar to DJ Jones, who's a kind of a stud for us for a few years over there. A little bit more in the pass rush, he's saying. So, look, the 49ers, again, they know more than I do. So I can tell you that right off the bat. I'm just not impressed right now. And the name Deshaun Stribling, when I heard it as the first overall pick after we heard Renegade from Styx, which that song is just pumping me up, man. That song they played in Pittsburgh, man, to get the crowd going. Oh, mama, I'm in fear for my life from the long arm of the law. I can just sing that whole song, man. I love that stuff. It was great. Anyway, so the Niners, we'll see. McNider jumping in over here saying the rest are straight up boom or bust developmental projects. There is a lot of potential, but they can only be developed. And we shall see if they are developed by the 49ers coaching staff and veteran players around them. There were a lot of other teams that didn't even have first-round picks. The Bengals, the Bills, they traded out of the first round. Jacksonville didn't. Indy didn't. Denver didn't. Green Bay didn't. Atlanta didn't. But interesting, Atlanta, they get Avion Terrell, and his brother A.J. Terrell already plays for the Falcons. So how about that, man? Now they can freaking live right next door to each other or whatever the hell they want to do. That's all. I don't know how good of a relationship they have, but they're brothers, so that's great.
Yeah, and this whole draft as a whole, I think is a lot of more so, you'll have your 10 or 12 studs, and then everybody else will be kind of like solid contributors. And
Who do you like defensively? Like, if you had to pick a defensive rookie of the year right now, who do you think has like?
It's hard right now because I'd run off. I love David Bailey, but I would probably say either Reese or Sonny Styles, and I can't again. To me, to have to say that about a Buckeye, it's just hopefully it's Derek Moore for the Lions, but it probably won't be. But right now my two early defensive player of the year would probably either be Sonny Styles or Arvell Reese. Those guys are just, especially Styles, those guys are just too athletic to not be good. So we'll see.
I like Styles, man. I'm thinking he's going to be one of those guys all over the field, 150 tackles type of guy. I mean, no shit. I think he's going to be an absolute stud. And as far as offensive rookie of the year, I'm thinking Jadarian Price has got a really good shot at doing that, even more so than Jeremiah Love, his running back teammate at Notre Dame, because Love is going to be given the ball a lot, and who knows how many yards he's going to rack up behind that line and in that offense, and new coaching staff, and the whole 9 yards, no pun intended at all. But I think that Jadarian Price stepping into that team and that offense, if Sam Darnold can keep playing well, got a good chance at it, man. I don't know. What do you think about his chances, or are you looking more to Carnell Tate or Jordan Tyson, or you're looking Jeremiah Love?
Well, I think the problem with Jeremiah Love is the fact that he's going to be sharing time in the backfield. So we'll kind of see how that goes. If James Conner stays healthy, he'll be kind of battling for time there.
I think they're going to try to trade him. That's what
they might. They might.
It's way too.
If they're smart, they probably would just to kind of get something. Kind of get some. Some type of momentum going. It is, and you have to be able. You don't want to waste Trey McBride. Hopefully, again, this is the year that you hope Marvin Harrison Jr. does something for you. But I can see Jadarian Price being right up there, top 2, top 3 for offensive rookie of the year. I mean, we know it won't be Ty Simpson. We know that.
No.
But this was a very defensive heavy, offensive lineman heavy draft. And Jordan Tyson, maybe. Carnell Tate, of course, the problem with that is that it's all going to depend on Cam Ward and how often he wants to get him the ball. It could be Kenyon Sadiq, but I don't think the Jets are smart enough to utilize him in the way that would kind of give you the full benefit of all his exploits. So offensive rookie of the year is going to be very, very hard to predict, until you see these guys play a couple games.
And God forbid they would give it to an offensive lineman. I mean, really. I mean, we're not going to recognize these guys. God, they don't give it to offensive linemen at all. No. Maybe Casey Concepcion, if they can get good quarterback play, who knows, man. But hey, the draft, now it's a lot of waiting because we don't have OTAs until the end of May. So there's a lot of time, man, to fill in over here to figure out what's going to be going on and if there are any moves coming up. But this is more of the quiet time now where the NFL dies down until, like we say, really the end of the month where teams start getting together, getting their practices going. Of course, coaches already in the building, some players in the building that watching film, they're doing their thing, getting ready for the season. It's late April as it is already. So you know what? The season really will be just right around the corner before you know it. They just got to keep us entertained a little bit longer and come up with some shit for a couple more months.
Yeah, we just got to keep following the Aaron Rodgers saga. So that'll keep everybody busy and hopefully hopefully that gets settled sooner than later. You still got the George Pickens story that, that's still kind of up in the air. So there are a few things going on in the NFL. But ladies and gentlemen, before you know it, it'll be July, August. They'll be playing the Hall of Fame game.
Woo!
And we will be ready in early September to kind of get this thing going again. But as always, the Power 32 podcast is always here to whet your appetite for all things NFL. And make sure you like, follow, subscribe, tell a friend, make a friend. And we are here each and every Tuesday night live at 7 p.m. on YouTube just for you. So as the NFL, even though the NFL quiets down, we're still loud and proud here on the Power 32 podcast.
You tell him, Prime. No doubt about it. All right, and to close it out real quick with McNiner, who knows his 49ers really well. The undrafted free agents, the 49ers signed Edge Kamara and safety Stroman, and there's a tight end that he likes out there. That's the thing. There's a lot of guys who aren't drafted that are on teams right now and given the opportunity to make teams. It's not just the guys who were drafted. There's a ton of dudes out there after, because you could bring in all these guys. You got to figure out, I'm going to need to just pick my best 53 at the end. But there are undrafted players all over the NFL. There are guys that are drafted in the 5th and 6th round who are studs right now. I mean, look at like Amon-Ra St. Brown. 16 wide receivers went before him.
Yeah.
Amon-Ra St. Brown is a top 5 wide receiver probably in the NFL. That's how good that guy is. He's unbelievable. So you never know, man. And that's why it's hard to grade this shit until really a couple of years out. We really don't know. But we do our best. We think what we think. We say what we say. And then the players play, man, and we leave it all out on the field. And I can't wait till the shit starts up again. Start making predictions. I already got like Bills, Bears in my head for Super Bowl.
Oh my God! Okay, all right. Okay. What's in that cup you're sipping on there? This is pure water for me. I wonder what Bills, Bears.
I'm not jumping on the Rams.
Actually, you know what?
Man. I'm not jumping on the Rams.
I might give them one more shot, because I was me. I was a Matthew Stafford slappy last year, and they fell short. So we'll see, and we'll get into our way too early predictions. I know we did it a couple months ago or so, but we got so much to look forward to here on the Power 32 podcast. And I'm trying to think when my 1 year was just me and you. When my 1 year is it past or is it coming up soon? I'm not sure.
I think we're more like I think we're coming up on it. Yeah, I don't think we're quite there yet.
We'll celebrate the 1 year anniversary of Prime and the Prophets.
Yes. There'll be confetti all over the place.
Confetti. Yeah. Corned beef sandwiches and everything.
Hey, again, you guys like what you hear and see, click the like button, subscribe. We appreciate it. We'll always show the love back, man. We love you guys in the chat. And McNiner, you killed it today. And Steve-O just showed up.
Supremo, yeah.
I didn't even see Steve-O. Said, watch Johnny Dell film on Stribling today, just on blocks alone. Hey, look, you need blockers, man. And if you could be a big guy and you can make some blocks, man, I'm all about that. That's great. But look, 49ers had some other needs I thought maybe they would address. They already brought in Mike Evans and Christian Kirk to go along with Ricky Pearsall. So I didn't think that wide receiver was the main way to go. I looked at Ricky Pearsall. I mentioned that's like when you say Jimmy Garoppolo. I cringe.
I don't get your guys' infatuation with him. It's your guy. I
don't have an infatuation.
It's your guy though. So just like here with the Tigers, everybody. Oh, Riley Green. It's like guy strikes out 260 times a year. But
right.
Anyway.
Might be able to hit it 500 feet, but, usually going the other way. Oh, God. Anyway, like, subscribe. We appreciate it. Power 32. We will be back for you with more next week. What it is, we're not sure yet. We'll figure it out. Just like the NFL offseason, baby. We keep on rolling. All right. We're out of here.
Peace.
Next time. Peace.